Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the workshop one of International Brokerage event for Horizon 2020 Green Deal Call. My name is Serhat Melik. I am working as the Horizon 2020 program National Contact Point for Smart, Green and Integrated Transport Area. Today, I will moderate this session together with my colleagues, Mr. Charlie Yildirim, NCP for Energy, and Mr. Hasan Burak Tiftik, NCP for SME. I just would like to inform you that our recording is also being web streamed in YouTube. It is our pleasure to host you. Actually, the Green Deal topics has a transdisciplinary and multi-sectoral approach, but in this particular session, we will focus on the Green Deal topics, which are mostly related to energy and transport area. These are 1.2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 3.1, 4.1, and 5.1. Our session is consists of two parts. In the first part, our speakers from European Commission will give you information about the content and the requirements of each topic. The second session is dedicated to the pitchings. Our participants will present their both project ideas or their company profiles in order to seek the cooperation possibilities for the Green Deal calls. So let's start with the first part. In the first part, we have 8 distinguished speakers from different Directorate Generals of European Commission. They will enlighten us with their presentation about Green Deal topics. I would like to thank all of them in advance for sharing their time and contributing to our event. First of all, I would like to say to our speakers that we will change your slides during your presentation, so we will appreciate if you could direct us while moving to the next slides. And for our audience, I would like to say that please write your question while our presenters delivering their presentation in the Q&A place that you will find in the bottom of your screen. We will direct your inquiries to each presenter at the end of their presentation. Of course, due to time limitation, we will just direct 1 or 2 questions. But for your further technical question, you will also use European Commission Research Inquiry Service in Finding and Tender Opportunities portal. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating again. Let's begin in the first part. So I would like to kindly invite our first presenter, Mr. Philippe Frossard, the head of Future and Mobile System Unit in DG Research and Innovation.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Philippe. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this topic on climate neutral and socially innovative cities, which is one of the topics of the European Green Deal call, and which is focusing, as the title says, on climate neutrality for cities in Europe. Can I have the next slide, please? So what is at stake, and what is really the purpose, the objective of this action? It's to support cities in their systemic transformation towards climate neutrality. And the reason why we want to focus on climate neutrality is to respond really to the objective of the Green Deal, which wants the European continent to become climate neutral by 2050. And the reason why we want to focus on cities is very simple. I mean, most of the inhabitants in Europe live in cities. That number is actually going to increase as the years pass. And we expect to have more than 80% of the population living in cities by 2050. And cities are the place where most of the energy is consumed and where most of the greenhouse gases are emitted. So if we want to address climate change, if we want to fight the battle for climate neutrality, we have to do it in cities. And if we want to have any hope of reaching the objective of the Green Deal, we need to make sure that those cities in Europe become climate neutral. Can I have the next slide, please? But before describing a little bit the scope of this topic, I think it's important to explain a little bit what we mean by city and cities more generally. So we actually use a standard definition that is widely used across different programs in Europe. So a city for us is really either a city district, a city represented by a government unit, like typically a municipality, or an urban area, which is composed of a conglomeration or a functional area composed of many neighboring cities or government units. There is one thing that we do not specify in the call, and is actually the minimum size of what we consider eligible for a city. And the reasons for that, normally we use 50,000 inhabitants, and here we don't specify that minimum number. The reason for that is, as you will see in my presentation, we want actually to provide technical assistance services to cities, as many cities as possible, and we want to be as inclusive as possible, because we want to provide them with, to equip them with the necessary tools to become climate neutral. So we don't want to exclude any cities regardless of their size. Having said that, it's clear that we want also our activity to have an impact and to be able to address as many large cities as possible. So if you have a proposal that only targets and is focused on small size cities, necessarily it will not fulfill the expected impact of the call. So you have to balance that as well. Can I have the next slide? So the objective of this topic is, at the end of the process, to develop a one-stop shop platform which will help cities to implement their climate action plan and related social innovation action plans, providing thereby the necessary technical, regulatory, financial, and socioeconomic expertise and assistance. So we want mainly to provide service and support to cities that want to become climate neutral and help them to develop their climate action plan, their strategy to become climate neutral within a reasonable timeline. The kind of organizations that we would like to involve in the proposals are many types of organizations, from research organizations, academias, industries, and so on. And I think here I have to mention what could be potentially the role of cities themselves in a possible proposal that would be submitted as a response to this call. Well, cities, as I explained, will be the beneficiaries of the one-stop shop platform, of the services that will be provided by the project that will eventually be supported. But we don't necessarily expect cities to be part of the consortium that will be implementing and managing this platform. So cities, clearly beneficiaries of the activity, not necessarily participating in the consortium or in the proposals directly as member or beneficiaries of the consortium. The activities that we foresee for the call are 4 of them. And I have to stress that it's not 1 or 2 or 3 of the activities that should be addressed by the proposal, but all 4 of them. The first activity concerns the services and the support that will be provided to the city to help them develop their climate action plan. The second activity will be focusing on the financial engineering, if I could use this word, namely the support that will be provided to cities to develop their investment strategy in order precisely to implement that climate action plan that they have developed in the first place. The third activity concerns social innovation and citizens engagement, which is an essential component of these activities that we want cities to engage with. And last but not least, we have a dedicated activity which will support research innovation per se and pilots, large-scale pilots that can be implemented as a response to the needs of the cities in order for them to become climate neutral. Next slide, please. So just to represent basically what we mean by these activities, so we have the one-stop shop platform, which is the overarching element that will implement all 4 activities. And I repeat, not 1 or 2 of the others. All 4 activities have to be represented in the proposal that will be submitted to this call. So the climate action plan, support to the climate action plan, support to the investment strategy, support to social innovation, and the development of the pilots, which will target eventually the cities as end beneficiaries, because integrated into activity 4, and we'll come back to that a little bit later, we want to be able to launch, we want the platform to be able to launch calls for proposals through a cascade funding mechanism. Next slide, please. So to exemplify a little bit more what we mean by the activities that need to be covered by the call. So for activity 1, it's all about service provision, support that will be provided to cities in order to help them develop their climate plans. So that means identifying, for instance, science-based indicators for assessing the city's climate neutral action plan, identifying regulatory, institutional, or financing barriers that prevent the cities to become climate neutral. So all these actions will be provided as support by the platform to the cities that will be asking for this, this support, this assistance. Next slide. So just to complement under activity 1, it's all about designing the concept for the climate neutral city contract. And here I have to make a little reference to the fact that we are talking about climate neutral city contract, which is a concept that is actually developed by, which has been developed by the Mission Board for Climate Neutral and Smart Cities, which is an ongoing activity that has been launched as part of Horizon Europe. So there is a reference in the work program to the work and the activities of that Mission Board. And actually, what I will do in the chat, I will put the link of the report that has been submitted by the Mission Board, which I think proposers should read before submitting and working on the possible proposals to respond to this call, because it's very important to make the link with the activities of that specific mission on cities that is part of Horizon Europe, which is a different legal base than Horizon 2020. But you should be looking at this topic as part of the Green Deal call topic, call as a precursor of the city's mission that will be implemented in Horizon Europe. Next slide. Regarding activity 2, so about financial engineering, we and the proposers have to take into account the fact that there are quite many activities that are already ongoing to provide technical assistance and financial assistance and advisory services to cities that want to develop their strategy for becoming climate neutral, which are usually sectoral activities and sectoral services. So here you have a non-exhaustive list of a number of these initiatives. It's not an open invitation to have all these participants involved in the consortium, but it's an invitation for sure to the proposers to analyze and understand what are the different services and make an explicit reference to the complementarities that will be established as part of their proposal to those existing services that relate to financial engineering. So the idea really is to explore financial instruments that are available under typically the European Investment Bank, but not only the European Investment Bank, the BERD as well, is and the structural funds are also sources of finances that can be used by the cities to help them implement their strategy for becoming climate neutral. Next slide. Activity 3 relates to social innovation and citizens' engagement. Engaging with citizens is a key element for the strategy that we want the cities to develop to become climate neutral. It's not about informing or consulting the citizens in the process of developing that strategy. It's involving them in the design itself of the strategy, in co-creation, if you want. And that requires putting into place a number of mechanisms and structures and processes that will allow these citizens to become involved from the design phase of the strategy. And typically the platform that we want to establish through this call will provide the necessary support and assistance to those cities that will want to engage their citizens in this process. Next slide. So the activity 4, the last one, is actually the most important in terms of budget. I'll come back to that in my last slide. So the idea really is to support large-scale pilots for deployment of systemic solutions that will combine a number of components: technological, social, nature-based, cultural, regulatory, and financial innovation. And they will be there as a response to the needs of the cities that have identified issues to become climate neutral. So we expect the platform to come up with call for proposals that will target those cities and their stakeholders to identify, to develop the solutions that they require to become climate neutral on a number of thematic issues that they are facing. But on top of that, we want also these calls and the platform that will be implementing those calls to facilitate the upscaling and the replicability of the solutions. We have at our disposals only a limited amount of money as part of this call, but we would like the solutions that will be identified as part of the calls that will be supported, the research innovation that will be actually supported by the project, to benefit not only the direct actors that have been involved through the pilots, but a much larger group of cities in particular. And we would like this upscaling to benefit a number of cities that are actually not directly involved in those pilots through twinning and mentoring of at least 2 other cities or districts from different member states than those that were present in the pilot. So the idea is really to benefit as much as possible a large community of cities from the solutions that will come from these pilots that will be supported. And I draw your attention to the fact that there is a specific evaluation criteria that needs to be addressed by the proposers very well when preparing their proposals, which is basically linked to the implementation of the calls that will be part of Activity 4 through a mechanism of cascade funding. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So the deadline, I mean, is common to all the other topics. So we have our deadline on the 26th of January. So we still have some time, but not that much actually left time for the preparation of this call. The indicative budget for this topic is of 53 million, and there is a caveat as regard the use of these resources, which means that we indicate that 60% should be dedicated to Activity 4 for financial support to third parties, mechanism which is referred to as cascade funding. The typical size of those pilots that will be funded as part of Activity 4 is between 500,000 to 1.5 million, depending on the expected impact of the pilots. And there is a reference to the fact that you have to look very carefully at Annex K of the work program, which refers precisely to the cascade funding to third parties. One important aspect to take into account is that at the end of the process, despite the fact that we have 53 million, we want only one project to be selected. And that project will be the one-stop shop platform that will be supported as part of the response from this Green Deal call topic to climate neutral and socially innovative cities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Philip, for that nice presentation. We have one question so far. Let me direct to you. You mentioned that a platform will be established through the project, and will the partners of that platform also be available for cascade funding under?
That's an excellent question, if I may say. Well, we have to respect the rules in a sense that you cannot be at the same time involved in the preparation of the calls and benefit from that call. So indeed, if you are a member of the consortium that is, and in particular, responsible for the tasks that will be around the implementation of Activity 4, you cannot be a beneficiary of the calls that you will be launched. So we need to make a clear distinction between those that will be driving and managing the process of these calls and those that will be benefiting from these calls, which means that if you want actually to benefit from the pilots, you should not be in the consortium.
Thank you very much for the clarification, Philip, and for your enlightening presentation. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let us continue with our next presenters. Actually, the topic GD 2.1 is about renewable energy technologies, but this topic consists of 2 important sub-areas. The first one is about land-based renewable technologies, and the second one is about offshore renewable technologies. We have 2 distinguished speakers for that topic. For the land-based renewable solutions, I would like to invite Mr. Ibonis, is also in the transition unit in DG Research Innovation. He will start first. And Mr. Carlos Eduardo Libate Cunha, he's also the postdoc stream by the Regional for Research Innovation. He will continue on the offshore renewable technologies. Thank you very much. Piero, can you hear us?
Evet.
Merhaba, hoş geldin. Welcome.
Hoş bulduk. Herkese iyi günler. Ben Piero De Bonis, Avrupa Komisyonu'nda Araştırma ve İnovasyon Genel Müdürlüğü'nde çalışıyorum. Şimdi izninizle bu noktadan sonra konuşmama İngilizce devam edeceğim. Evet. Thank you for the next slide. Topic one that we are going to present now with my colleague Cadu Lima da Cunha is a quite vast topic on renewable energy sources, renewable energy technologies, and we are two speakers because the topic is divided into subtopics: subtopic 1 and subtopic 1 and subtopic 2. And as it is mentioned on this slide, applicants will have to clearly indicate which subtopic is addressed in their proposal. This slide is a general introduction slide that I'm going to describe to you now. Then I'm going to present subtopic 1, and then my colleague Cadu Lima da Cunha will present subtopic 2. Subtopic 1 is on land-based renewables. Subtopic 2 is on offshore renewables. So why are we having this topic 2.1 in the European Green Deal call? We have it because I think we all agree on the fact that land-based and offshore renewables have to become the main energy source in the future energy system to make Europe, and of course beyond Europe, areas climate neutral. But this has, of course, to happen, ensuring at the same time stability and resilience of the energy system. And we have a number of general policies, recent ones, in light of which we are launching this topic. Of course, we can mention the Clean Planet for All communication. We can mention the Strategic Energy Technology Plan. We can mention the New Circular Economy Strategy, the Sustainable Development Goals, and so on. So this is the general framework for this topic 2.1. Next slide, please. So topic 1, as I was saying, is focused on the development of land-based renewable energy technologies and their integration in the energy system. This is the link to the topic in the funding and tender opportunities portal. It is, of course, the same link also for the subtopic 2. Next slide, please. So here we are talking about Horizon 2020. So we have the usual repartition of the narrative of the topic in 3 blocks. The first block is, of course, the specific challenge, the presentation of what we are, what is at stake here. So we start from the consideration that renewable energy based district heating and cooling and the cogeneration of heat and power can play a key role in the future energy system in terms of system integration and decarbonization. And we mentioned here, of course, the recent energy system integration strategy that is described in Communication 299, in the European Commission Communication 299 of this year, 2020. What are the challenges for, so we are focusing here on district heating and cooling and on cogeneration of heat and power. What are the challenges for these 2 main areas? Of course, the challenges are, if we want to move to systems which are based almost 100%, if not 100%, on renewable energy sources. The challenges are robustness, reliability, flexibility, effective and efficient combination of different threats, because this is what the call is about, cost effectiveness, affordability at the same time, and of course taking into consideration the specific conditions of every geographical region of Europe, and of course all the specific condition in all the associated countries of Horizon 2020. Important remark that digital solutions have to be considered as an important enabler. Next slide, please. So now we move to the scope, and this is really what the applicants have to focus on. So projects have to develop innovative solutions for either district heating and cooling, heating and or cooling. So it can be a district heating system, it can be a district cooling system, it can be at the same time a district heating and cooling system, or cogeneration of heat and power. So applicants can choose whether to focus on district heating and cooling, district heating and or cooling, or on generation of heat and power. The next sentence you see on this slide, solutions have to satisfy significant or possibly total share of energy by combining different renewable energy sources. So it was mentioning before, we are targeting significant shares of renewable energy in district heating and cooling systems or in cogeneration of heat and power systems. Even we would like to see fully 100% renewable systems with a combination of different renewable energy sources. And this is better specified in the next sentence, which says that projects will have to combine at least 2 or more renewable energy sources and or 2 or more renewable energy technologies. So of course we can have the same renewable energy source like solar, but 2 different technologies like building integrated photovoltaics and solar heating and cooling. This is just an example, solar thermal panels. And of course we want to see a combination of at least 2 or more sources, 2 or more technologies, or maybe it can be also 1 source and 1 technology. Anyway, we want to see that applicants really work on the integration of different sources and technologies of renewable energy. An important indication is that the seasonal load in the case of district heating and cooling system, or the daily and seasonal loading in the case of CHP, and of course the availability of renewable energy sources has to be properly considered in the proposal. So proposals will be carefully scrutinized also for this aspect. Next slide, please. This is still a continuation of the scope. Specifically, if you decide to focus on district heating and cooling system, you can also consider the integration of sources of otherwise wasted excess heat or cold, and you can consider interfacing with existing distribution networks. If you decide to focus on cogeneration of heat and power, the minimum electrical generation capacity of the system which you want to develop, of course, you're not going to develop now a system with this capacity, but you're going to do a research activity on a system that at commercial scale will have this capacity. And so the targeted capacity, the targeted electrical generation capacity is 2.5 megawatt. And the applicants are required to go way beyond the state of the art with their electrical efficiency. Also, applicants are supposed to address energy efficiency and cost effectiveness optimization and the adaptability to existing systems for a representative variety of network conditions. Next slide, please. This is the last slide on the scope. Very important, the sustainability of the proposed solutions has to be assessed in environmental, social, and economic terms. So not only you have to present a solution which is technologically valid, but also you have to consider these aspects. And this is more and more a requirement you will see in future calls of the framework program for research. And the final requirement is that the needs of the final users have to be properly taken into account. This is also very important, especially, of course, in the case of a district heating and cooling system where there are many final users for the system. Next slide, please. Expected impact. With this, with successful proposals, with the projects from this topic, we want to see a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, a reduction of air pollutants, and a reduction in the use of fossil fuels. And in summary, we want to see district heating and cooling, or CHP systems, which are based on renewable onshore sources, and which are adaptive to the local conditions and also scalable according to the energy demand. So these are the 2 main blocks of impacts we are looking at. With the next slide, we are going to see the conditions of this call. So I would like to stress that this is a research and innovation action. So we are asking applicants to achieve TRL 4-5. TRL 4 is technology validated in the lab. TRL 5 is technology validated in relevant environment. Technology validated in relevant environment, for example, again, if you decide to focus on solar technologies, you're validating the technology in relevant environment if you're actually using the solar resource. The expected contribution per project is 3 to 6 million euros. And the total budget for this topic, for this subtopic 1 is 18 million euros. The deadline, of course, as was said before, is 26th of January. And in my, and sorry, very important, what is you see at the bottom of this slide, if we have several successful proposals above threshold, first we will fund the first one on district heating and cooling, and the second, and the first one on cogeneration of heat and power, and then we will, if there is still budget available, we will move on in the ranking list. And with my last slide, which is going to be the next one, I'm going to present 3 frequently asked questions, which should have published just today. And these are questions we have already received since we announced the call in September. The first one is, how do you ensure that if you use waste heat, this is sustainable? And of course, the reply we gave is that all applicants are supposed to assess the sustainability of the proposals. So they will also have to assess whether the source of heat they are using is sustainable. And the next question is, if we want to use an approach to district heating which foresees electrification, should the renewable energy capacity be directly linked to the facility? The reply we gave is that if applicants choose to electrify the district heating system, they have to demonstrate that the electricity they are using is sourced from renewable energy sources. And the last question, are hybrid solutions in the scope? Indeed, they are, and they count for the number of renewable energy sources and or technologies that they combine. This is to comply with the requirement in the first slide of the scope I presented earlier. This is all for the subtopic 1 of topic 2.1, and of course I'm happy to answer any questions. I will stay for a while, maybe half an hour connected, or in case you can reach me afterwards for further questions.
Thank you very much, Piero, for your nice presentation and also mentioning the frequently asked questions part in Funding and Tenders portal. I believe there are much more questions that our audience will follow from there. But I have one question, one extra question for that particular subtopic 1. Will the installation cost of cogeneration of heat and power be financed via the call?
Yes, I mean, the eligibility of the cost is the regular one for Horizon 2020 calls. Again, let me remind that this is a research and innovation action. So as you saw, we are asking applicants to achieve TRL 4, which can simply be laboratory activity, or TRL 5. But then, in the spirit of achieving TRL 4 or 5, all the costs are, of course, eligible.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation and your speech. So let us move to subtopic 2 with our speaker, Mr. Carlos Eduardo Lima de Cunha. Mr. Cunha, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to our event. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to be following up from what Piero was saying. And as I said, there's a good synergy here between the different ideas. One is more offshore, the other one's a bit more land-based. But and there's also now a bit more of differences here. And as you're going to see, the subtopic 2 is much more about demonstration. It's an innovation action rather than a research and innovation action. So we're going to be looking into demonstrating innovative technologies pretty much for the deployment of offshore renewable energy. So if we go to the next slide, we can start looking into what is the expected, or what are the challenges that we're going to be seeing. So can we go to the next slide? Yes, thank you. Yeah, so this is the specific challenge that we see that we want to tackle with this call. So the idea here is really to build an offshore renewable energy platform that can ensure cost efficiency while fostering a green economy. And we really want to highlight that there is a very strong point here on keep protecting environments and biodiversity. So the idea is really trying to look into how to put all those different parts together, connecting them into an offshore facility that keeps in mind all the green sustainable policies that we put in place. We also want with this proposal to tackle the issue of building an infrastructure that integrates into the power offshore resources that we have. And finally, also to make use of the different European sea basins that are available around Europe. I just realized that I didn't have my camera on. Apologies for that. Now my camera is on. Yeah. So the idea there is also to look at all the different sea basins that we have around Europe, and really looking to exploring the different possibilities that we have around us. So next. Yes, thank you. So the scope of this call, I mean, as I said, the idea here is really to demonstrate at sea critical offshore renewable energies innovation. And this is really, really important, and I cannot stress this enough, that the demonstration must be done at sea. And we're going to be looking notably at two main innovations. One is offshore renewable energy power generating systems, and another one is grid infrastructure. So when we're looking into power generating systems, we are covering an array of different technologies that could be implemented. We go from winds, which again can be floating, wave, tidal, solar, floating, fixed bottom. There is an array of what can be done there. And we're also looking into grid infrastructure, which I'm going to be touching upon in a couple of slides. And I think it's also important to highlight that another point that we also want to have it addressed potentially is the whole issue of power to X conversion, batteries, and storage systems to increase the resilience of the whole system. So as you can see, it's a few different components that we are looking at, and we really want to drive the innovation forward with this call. Be it the generation of the energy itself, be it the grid infrastructure, and some components of some power to X or storage should be built into it, or could be built into it, and we would like to see something into that. Next slide. As I said, a bit more details on the grid infrastructure. The idea is really to build a real-life demonstration on pretty much a hub that we want to see where all those different pieces can be connected, and try to connect all those different hybrid technologies there. This that is actually quite relevant for the large-scale deployments that we foresee for the next decades. Something that can really be connecting several different farms or several different clusters of farms can be connected and can be then later on related to the continents. If you're talking about floating infrastructures, then we also need to look specifically into the conditions that is required for floating, like inter-array cables and connections. Next. Yes. Another part of that is within the scope of what we would like to see in the call is how pretty much multifunctional platforms should be considered. And there are several different components that play a role in that. And one of them is obviously industrial design and manufacturing process. We would really like to keep this in mind. Another thing that is obviously important, as I already mentioned, is the whole concept of sustainability and circularity, which we think it's really something that we need to put forward now, and really something that is coming ahead as a very strong policy for the next years. So it's something that ideally we also like to see this taken into consideration already here. Another point that is important is taking into consideration regulatory needs and financial challenges, as well as maritime spatial planning, and what is also quite relevant, public acceptance. So those are all individual pieces that when we come to making a demonstration at sea, all of them will come and play a role. So all those points need to be tackled in the proposal. And obviously the last point, environmental monitoring plan, is also something that we want to look at. As I said, the idea is that in a few decades, we're going to have a large-scale deployment. So the idea with this specific topic is really looking into how can we actually monitor all those different things, like as an example kind of situation here, which kind of measures can we look, which kind of tools can be used, and really trying to keep all those different actors that are involved as informed as possible, right? So if we go to the next slide. As I said, I mean, the idea here is to really contribute to knowledge building innovation, to really have the lessons learned in this kind of a project really something that we can build on from here to the next projects that we're going to have. We also want to have a clear demonstration of the pathway to obtaining the permits. This is something that is extremely important, that it's very well addressed in the proposal. Needs to be a clear way on how you're going to be achieving the permits that you need, the timing and the financial efforts that you need to be able to fund the whole proposal, right, or the whole deployment. Finally, as one last point, I think it's also very important to have in the proposal addressed a very clear moment that would have a go or no-go moment before entering the deployment phase. This is something that is also quite relevant, and something that our colleagues currently have really been making very clear that it's quite relevant to have a very clear, pretty much a final checkpoint on do we have everything, and how exactly to address those kind of situations. So yes, if we can go to the next slide. As I think I've been hinting out so far, the expected impacts that we hope to see from the proposal that will be selected, the projects that are going to be coming out, is really being able to see how would the rollout of such platforms actually be done in the future, right? I mean, that's more or less what we want to see, seeing how this one demonstration at sea would be happening. What are all the lessons that we can take from it? What are the innovations that come and can really help supporting this? We want to see what are the systems, the existing, all the alternative systems that can be put in order to support all kind of environmental impacts, as well as ecological, social, and economic impact along the whole value chain. This is really something that we are aiming to see as a final outlook on everything. Finally, we also would like to have as a final expected impact on this is to increase the incentives for the investments of economy of scale. So by being able to create some innovations that would be able to tackle the manufacturing issues that is going to be happening, right? So how to pretty much scale up some of those innovations. This is something that we also would like to see as an expected impact. Next, as I addressed, this is an innovation action. So we're looking at, again, I mean, at a slightly bigger budget for projects. We are looking at projects between 20 and 30 million, 20 to 35 million. We look at TRL7, so pretty much, as it says there, a demonstration in the operation environment, which is why we are looking into a demonstration at sea. Our deadline is together with all other deadlines. As you can see from indicative budget, we hope that we can fund 2, potentially 3 projects. Let's see how exactly if everything is going to go, right? So if you can go to the next slide, I think there's only another final remark. In the next slide. Yes. So in order to achieve a balanced portfolio, we were going to be addressing, we aim to be able to fund at least 2 proposals, and one addressing offshore renewable energy power generation, and another one on grid infrastructure. Assume that they all reach the minimum thresholds, right? If we are able to fund those 2, and there is still budget available, and there's another proposal that's above all the possible thresholds, then we'll try to fund a 3rd one independently of the criteria. But it's important that we would like to have at least one of each one of those. Yes, I think this is my last slide, but you could go next and see.
So thank you very much, Carlos, for the clarifications. Related to subtopic 2, we have just one question that I'd like to ask. So actually, currently there is no installed capacity for offshore renewable energies, either in the Black Sea or the Mediterranean Sea shores of Turkey. So the question is that, will the project cover the installation of such technologies in demonstration field, or in the proposals, are you expected to apply already functioning sites?
Well, I mean, as I said, part of the permitting is something that needs to be tackled within the proposal. So obviously, if there is already some functioning sites that already have some permits, this is obviously something that should be addressed in the proposal. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a bit of the point there. So if not, then obviously a very clear rationale needs to be described to that you would be able to get the permitting and get all the regulatory needs in order to do the installation in such an area.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. And I also would like to ask, if the existing sites need to, let's say, modify their facilities, is it also possible the installation cost of or modification cost of such facilities will also, let's say, eligible under the support of European Commission?
Modifications of existing sites. These will all probably need to get back to you to look into this. My understanding is that it wouldn't, because it needs to be a new installation altogether with some innovative ways of. But this is something I'll probably need to get back to you later on.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much, Piero, for your presentation.
I was just going to say, if it is about eligibility of cost, yeah, please, if you can write to us, and then it will be easier for us to understand exactly the question and reply to you, I think.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you both Piero and Carlos for their presentations and their contribution. Görüşmek üzere. So let us continue with our next speaker. But before moving to our next speaker, we also frequently received questions about the presentation and the record. Yes, both the presentations and the records will be published both the national website h2020.org.tr and the website of the Turkey in Horizon 2020 project. So let us continue with our next speaker. The presentation is about GD 2.2. It is about 100 megawatt electrolyzer demonstration of it. And our presenter is Mr. Fabio Domenico. He is assistant to principal advisor in DG Energy. Hello, Fabio. Welcome to our workshop.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. It is our pleasure to see you. So the floor is yours, Fabio.
Could you put my presentation? Hello. While my presentation is uploaded, maybe I will start. So thank you for inviting me. This call concerned the hydrogen and why hydrogen can, in particular, the electrolyzer to build a large installation on 100 megawatts, a demonstration project. But before I start, I'll give you some hints of why hydrogen is important, one for reaching the goals of the Green Deal, as well for these goals to create an ecosystem also for hydrogen. Let me start to give you a few hints about what is the broader perspective. And I see my presentation is not, I'll try to do myself.
Sorry, Fabio, now it has been uploading.
Okay, yeah. Fantastic. So next slide, many thanks. Yeah, so this call entering the broader perspective of the EU hydrogen strategy, which has been published on the 8th of July, which consider a long-term holistic vision, as you see, is anchored in the Green Deal. And the starting point is that 75% of our emissions, EU emission, depends on the energy sector. So they cannot be climate neutrality without tackling the energy sector, this energy system itself. And renewable hydrogen in this will play an important role, especially for hard to abate sectors such as industry and transport. And this strategy foresees a roadmap. The roadmap indicates that 6 gigawatt of renewable hydrogen electrolyzer should be ready by 2024, and then 40 by 2030, and then after that by 2050 the renewable hydrogen should be somehow used a bit largely in all hard to abate sectors. Next slide, please. It includes the strategy different actions, among them so to support demand, to support the production, to support the international cooperation, to promote research and innovation and demonstration projects, and so to create an ecosystem for hydrogen. And this falls also, among others, also the important European Green Deal call, which now I will give you the next slide, please, which I will explain in a bit more detail now. The objective of the Green Call you all know, but just to explain that the project in particular will focus exactly on the creation of a large electrolyzer, which include therefore demonstrating the feasibility of this technology, and also to paving the way toward commercialization. So it is fully entering this broader objective of the call. Next slide. I will enter into the topic now. For the one who do know what is an electrolyzer, just to explain you how hydrogen, green hydrogen should be produced or will be produced through this electrolyzer. There are already a smaller scale electrolyzer, for instance, 20 megawatt project is implemented through our joint undertaking through a call. The idea is that the renewable sources, so especially from wind and solar, should power the electrolyzer, and the electrolyzer will split the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then the hydrogen becomes the energy carrier. So it can be stored, transformed in gas, transporting fuel. So hydrogen in that sense makes the intermittent electricity from renewable source stored, is possible to store and transported. In this process, while create energy, is also generate a very few emissions. So far, the 98% of the hydrogen plants that exist, installations are gray. So therefore they generate some emissions. Some of them, for instance, the one with CCU, we will continue to be used in futures because they still produce some form of low carbon hydrogen. So the coal will provide important value added, but at the same time, to this value added means also that some challenges need to be overcome. So it has to balance the electrolyzer, should balance the system, should be powered by RES. It should be a very large system compared to what is existing now. There are only few of that kind, so it will be one of the largest in the world. And the important things to have hydrogen cost competitive is to create economy of scale, so leading to further cost reduction. And that's what the main objective also of this electrolyzer will be. The Commission funds for this project are 60 millions. The funding rates is 50%. So therefore, there will be 2 projects can be financed. Next slide, please. There are the main activities that are foreseen in the call. I summarized them in this slide. The The project should include the development of large-scale module, which should be efficient, reliable, balance the system, respect of these parameters, and more you will see in the call. And then they should be assembled in a 100 megawatt electrolyzer, and to test it, to demonstrate that it works and that is also viable from the commercial point of view. This includes, therefore, also the possibility to have an operation in real life, for instance, in a port or on an industrial site, such as fertilizer production plant or synthetic fuel production. At the same time, with this project, another parameter is to evaluate environmental performance, also in terms of emissions consumption, in line with our European Renewable Energy Director, and of course in terms of water consumption. Next slide. So there are other additional activities which are important for this call. One is the cross-border dimension and the knowledge sharing in Europe. For instance, this means that this technology development should be shared, the information should be shared also for future projects. One way to do this is to organize a workshop with where 2 of them in Europe, as you see, but also to share information or dissemination activity with other projects. For instance, considering the project on the offshore energy technology. Finally, there are also the call, next slide, please. The call also includes a number of targeted impacts, which are quite technical. Just if I can summarize them, there are technological impact, operational, environmental impacts, and also cost competitive impacts. For instance, among the technological impacts, they are in terms on efficiency, on density, on footprint, the reduction of capex by 20%, the increase stack lifetime, so pretty specific. The operational environmental would consider the CO2 impact, including the CO2 intensity of hydrogen compared to natural gas. And there is also a cost competitive, as I said. For instance, I achieved a green hydrogen cost, which will be below 2.5 euro per kilo. I think this is comparable to what gas is now, between 1.5 1.3 kilos if production. I conclude here. That's a general overview. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabio, for your nice presentation. Now I am checking the question, only again one question. Actually, after the, let's say, 100 megawatt electrolyzer established, and it is required to test and demonstrate within the site. So will the cost of electricity production via the electrolyzer covered by the project? I mean, during the demonstration activities, the electricity produced, the cost of that produced electricity will also be covered within the supports of European Commission.
I must say I'm not an expert on what this will be, what will be covered, what will not, and what rate. But to my understanding, yes, during the process, this should be covered.
Thank you very much, Fabio. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with our next topic. This is about GD 2.3. It is about the Green Transition and Energy Access Partnership with Africa. So I would like to kindly invite Mr. Philippe Child. He is Senior Expert in Clean Energy Transition Unit in DG Research and Innovation. Philippe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope that you can hear me too.
Yes, thank you. Welcome. The floor is yours, Philippe.
Thank you. Thank you for having invited me to present this topic, 2.3, which is accelerating the green transition and energy access partnership with Africa. Next slide, please. Just one quick, one quick sort of introduction to the topic. This topic is sort of done and established within the scope of our EU-AU high-level policy dialogue on science, technology, and innovation. This dialogue was established in 2010 under the Joint Africa-EU strategy, and it had up to very recently 3 main partnerships, one focusing on food, nutrition, security, and sustainable agriculture. That was established in 2014. And the climate change and sustainable energy partnership that was established about 3 years ago. And this topic is done under this partnership, the Climate Change and Sustainable Energy Partnership. That partnership is focusing on 2 actions, one on climate action for adaptation and mitigation, and one on sustainable energy, and in particular, focusing on renewable energy and energy efficiency. So this is why the topic was put, and this is the framework on which the topic is being established. And this is why, in fact, the topic addresses both renewable energy and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Just to go straight to the scope, that's why the topic and the proposal address either the development of renewable energy source, including solution for off-grid communities and the integration into existing energy system, considering the generation of renewable energy, the transmission and the use and possible use of storage and battery if necessary, or energy efficiency. The proposal do not have to address both of them, only one of them. And the scope, then when you have selected which one you want to do, then you have to demonstrate innovative sustainable energy solution that consider climate adaptation and mitigation, the potential compared to other technologies within the African social, economic, and environmental context. The solution should consider both urbanized and rural context, meaning that the application doesn't need to do both. So you just select one, but still consider and address if it can be addressing both of them. Obviously, it will also to address the water, energy, food nexus actions in Africa, where there is a lot of stress on water and on food production. And energy needs water, obviously not food, but needs water. With the aim of providing sustainable energy access for electricity, cooking, or for creating improved health, economic wealth, and jobs. Next slide, please. So what beside having a demonstration made, the action, meaning the proposal, should include design, construction, commissioning, and operation of the demonstration installation, which means that we do expect at the end of the project to have a working and operating demonstration installation. To have work on development and started to implement a tailored value chain approach, identifying the most suitable manufacturing value chain on the basis of the local context, local material supply chains, and local workforce, with the objective of ensuring sustainable local economic development. This, what we're asking the consortium there is really to start investigating, how they will be able to market and deploy the concept that they are demonstrating. Linked to this aspect is to identify the technical, vocational, and educational needs of the workforce to be able to deploy and operate these technologies. To define a market and business strategy to ensure impacts through a quick and viable commercial take-up of the technology demonstrated, because there we want really to have an impact. So this is why we're asking the consortium to look clearly and strongly into their market and business strategy, and including a life cycle analysis. There, for the life cycle analysis, it has to be done in the African context, from cradle to grave, because we want to deploy it and technologies that are sustainable, with a lower impact on the environment, that are meeting the climate change targets, and that have positive social and economic dimension. Next slide, please. Things that the proposal and the applicant have to remember is to consider the circular economy approach, because this is aligned with our European Green Deal priorities. The demonstration installation is to be located in Africa with relevant African partners to participate in the implementation of the project. This is why we insist that the balanced consortium between European and African partners will be considered and assessed during the evaluation. The balance is a decision of how balanced the consortium is a decision of the consortium. There is no magic number there. You have to have the right expertise and the relevant expertise in your consortium. But this project and this topic is aimed at working with Africa. So I think the little word "with" is very important in this context, because we are not working for Africa, we are working with Africa. As information, Copernicus data and products are available, and may help in your life cycle analysis to evaluate the impact on human and environmental environment, but also can help you in operation of the renewable plants or your installation. The last paragraph is action shall also participate and contribute with the AU-EU partnership on climate change and sustainable energy, in particular with a project that will start early next year, that has been financed under this topic and selected, which are focusing mainly on research activities and EU-AU joint calls applications. There, we expect the consortium to be able to, and to foresee in their work package some time, some resources for participating in discussion, exchange of lessons learned, maybe even exchange of people if the opportunity exists. So it's really to get in contact, and because this project that will be selected under that topic will be done and monitored in the framework of this partnership. Next slides, please. The expected impact, we have defined in we have explicitly presented different type. On the short term, the project should in fact demonstrate a technology reliable and economically viable solution. This is the aim of your demonstration, that you can demonstrate that your concept is technologically reliable and economically viable. The second aspect is that you have also demonstrated in your and having enough data to prove the positive environmental, health, climate, social, and economic impact of your renewable energy solution. That you are better as a solution than other existing technology solution, and that you have obviously strengthened our activity within this climate change and sustainable energy partnership. Next slide. On the medium term, we expect that the proposal will be able to create new market opportunity for both European and African companies on the African continent. that it will increase the technological uptake of renewable energy solution on the African continent, and that will help accelerate the achievement of the African continent target of the Paris Agreement and in line of the European Green Deal ambition on climate neutrality. On the longer term, we expect economic growth and job creation in both EU and African countries. In addition, we expect that these projects will create benefits and contribute to this long list of sustainable development goal, number 7 being sustainable energy. Next slide, please. So the project size, we estimate that between 5 to 10 million, it's a reasonable size for the challenge to be addressed, depending on the solution you want to demonstrate. The estimated budget for the topic is 40 million. It is in innovation actions. We have, on top of the current and existing eligibility criteria on the consortium of 3 partners from 3 different member states or associated states, we are requesting that 2 partners are from at least 1 African country. This is to reinforce sort of the sentence in the scope, that of a balanced consortium. Next slide. Here you have some information website where you can see the information on the comprehensive strategy with Africa, on our EU-AU high-level policy dialogue, on the African-Europe Alliance, and on Copernicus. Next slide. Thank you. If you have any question, I can try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Philippe, for your presentation. Yeah, there are several questions actually. The first one is actually the fuel cell and hydrogen technology is generally supported under fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking. But for that particular topic, the fuel cell and hydrogen technology can be also applied as a renewable energy.
Well, fuel cells is not a renewable energy technology. But for example, hydrogen, your solution can use renewable energy sources to produce hydrogen. But the focus of the demonstration is not on the product, it's on the renewable energy source that you are using. This is the, or you could use fuel cells, but for example, if you use a methanol-based fuel cells, that's renewable energy produce the methanol, and then you use it in your fuel cells. This is sort of the end part of the demonstration.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. And also another question is about the structure of the consortium. You mentioned that there will be a balance between the European and African parts, and also emphasize that at least 2 partners from 1 African country is required. I mean, for the balancing issue, I mean, are you expecting that, let's say, 3 countries from Europe and 3 from Africa, or the number of partners that should be balanced or equal?
I know that this is sort of what sort of people are expecting, to have numbers that I give you 3-3, 50-50, or 40-60. No, it really depends of the solution. It depends of what the consortium will do. Obviously, it's on the expertise. So this is sort of what we want. Is the concept is work is it's a partnership that are working together on both sides. So part of the balance is sort of what the expertise 1 country or 1 partner is bringing in the consortium, and what another partner is bringing of the consortium. At an extreme, I think it's sort of if you have, for example, only a few partners, but you're just doing in Africa side just dissemination, maybe it's what that may not be considered to be a well balance, because we are looking at the deployment of the concept in Africa. So so this is sort of part of it's very, I know it's difficult to understand, but I think when a consortium will be put together, the people have to think about sort of is a consortium balance in terms of expertise contribution between the two sides.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And the last question is about will all African partners are eligible to be financed from European Commission?
The full list of normally, yes. The answer is yes. I don't know if one country may or may not, but I think all it's the list of all the countries that can receive financing are in the Annex 2 of the. So you will see the information on the web page document with the topic. But it basically all the countries in Africa are able to receive funding.
Okay, thank you very much, Philippe, for your nice presentation and answering our question. Thank you. We appreciate for it.
You're welcome.
And let us move to our next speaker. It is about GD, the topic GD 3.1. So I would like to kindly invite our speaker, Mr. Suan Bovat. He is the Deputy Head of Advanced Materials and Nanotechnology Unit in DG Research and Innovation. Yes. Hello, Mr. Bovat. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be part of this event and to be able to present our topic for the audience.
Thank you.
We would like to demonstrate the industrial feasibility of catalytic routes for sustainable alternatives to fossil resources in order to be able to close the carbon cycle in industry. Next slide, please. The topic that I'm presenting here is actually co-created together with all the other Commission services and several member states and also many stakeholders around Europe. And it's actually fully in line with the European Green Deal of President van der Leyen. And the proposal aims to contribute towards achieving the climate action targets to reach 55% greenhouse gas reductions by 2030 and full climate neutrality by 2050, as well as some of the circularity objectives. It actually also supports the new chemical strategy for sustainability, which was just adopted last week. In order to reach the targets we're talking about here, which are very, very ambitious, it needs the full mobilization of the European industry, especially the energy-intensive industry. And it is, in fact, impossible to reach the targets without this industry. It's also very much linked with the previous presentations about hydrogen and renewable energy, because without renewable energy and hydrogen, it's not going to be possible to do this. So next slide, please. The process industry, as you probably know, is the single largest point source of greenhouse gas emissions in Europe, and it accounts for approximately 20% of the greenhouse gas emissions. The problem that this industry has is that it's really heavily dependent on fossil resources to produce both basic materials and also value-added products, which are needed by all of us in the modern society. And we cannot really foresee our future without many of these products. At the same time, this industry, they cannot easily change their production system, first and foremost, because they already have invested trillions of euros in the infrastructure, and it takes years to implement changes of the scale that we are talking about. So viable solutions to the problem are therefore needed without risking the really millions of European jobs which are depending on the process industry. And at the same time, we would like to try and see if we can create new job opportunities. Next slide, please. We are looking forward to new, and by new, I mean highly innovative and recyclable catalytic systems in conjunction with renewable energy, which can be solar, wind, and hydropower, which are the most dominant in this case, and that facilitate the transformation of CO2 into feedstock fuels and chemicals, and thereby replace the fossil resources that we are using every day. I think it's important to note that it goes much further than just fuels. In essence, what we are proposing is to establish a system that can replace fossil fuels in the process industry in due time. And how can catalysis help with this? Well, it can help by increasing the energy efficiency of the transformation and reuse large industrial point sources of CO2 through, for instance, combining different sectors in industrial symbiosis. It can also reduce the imports of fossil resources and thereby help the circularity. And we hope that the proposal will improve the flexibility in storage of high-density fuels or energy carriers that's needed to be able to make the transformation into the new energy future that we're looking at. So how can a technology like catalysis, which is quite specific, actually help society? In the next slide, I have given a historic example of a catalyst that actually changed the way that the world is working. It was invented around 1900, and it contributed very, very strongly to initiate the Industrial Revolution. As a matter of fact, this process is responsible for the fact that we are so many people on this planet, because without ammonia to sustain or to make fertilizer, we would not be able to sustain our life on this planet. At the same time, this process, which is the largest chemical process in the world with approximately 160 million tons per year produced, it actually also uses quite a lot of, or it's contributing to the CO2 emissions with approximately 1.5% of the total global emissions. And that we need to change. And that's why we hope that the new system that we are proposing for the CO2 conversion can be equally successful and thereby lowering the emission rates. Next slide, please. So in concrete terms, what is it that we want to achieve? Well, we want to demonstrate this technology at near industrial scale, which means transforming more than 4,000 tons of CO2 into feedstock fuels and chemicals. And this is approximately 10 times more than what is currently available in the world. So it's a real new standard. It should include all the aspects of the related industrial value chain and support Europe's position as a global leader in this field. We hope that it can use primarily current industrial infrastructure, whereby also limiting the capital expenditure that would be necessary to make this demonstration. It's very important to point out that these processes, which we are proposing, should be based on detailed techno-economic and life cycle assessment consideration. This is really important to understand that without this, it's not going to work. And the experts that will be conducting the evaluation will be looking at these facts. So we hope that we can arrive at the end of TRL 7 within 5 years from the start of the project. And that in turn should lead to a full industrial scale product, which is financed outside the European Framework Programme for Research and Innovation. For instance, through EU Invest, through the member states and through industry. The project size that we are foreseeing is up to 40 million euros of EU funding. And it's foreseen that we are able to fund up to 2 projects in this sense. Next slide, please. Further impacts. And now it comes to the real important part of this, because the demonstration should show the potential for reducing the industrial CO2 emissions by 200 megatons by 2050. It means that we want to have a ramp up of the processes up to the largest industrial chemical reactions that are running today. So no small feat. It should be an affordable and highly efficient production, storage, and also distribution of renewable energy carriers. It can be in fuels or it can be in hydrogen. And it's in this process, actually, we will have an indirect improvement of the air quality and the health effects through the filtering of the flue gas emissions that are coming from large point sources. In general, it should address all the financial, regulatory, and environmental aspects that are associated with this, and it should contribute to the industrial circularity, preferably by direct transformation of CO2 from industrial emissions. We hope to foster through this process also a cross-sectorial European innovation ecosystem to supply or to deploy the sustainable alternatives to fossil resources. All these things are not possible if we do not reach out to society. So it's needed that we have a societal engagement in full transparency. And that, of course, also involves the training, education of new employees, researchers, and students. In essence, this project should help the sector integration and demonstrate essential parts of the hydrogen economy that was already mentioned before. Next slide, please. So what is actually not foreseen in this proposal? Well, we do not want to repeat small projects that we've done in the past. We need projects that can deliver a quasi full-scale demonstration of the potential of the industrial CO2 use from last point sources, not just the repeat of something we have done in the past. And I also have to say that while direct air capture, which is very much talked about, it seems attractive, and it's also not excluded from the proposal. It's really unlikely that this could be implemented already, and it's estimated that the concentration of CO2 alone from direct air would lower the overall process efficiency by 5 to 10%. The same goes for biotechnological solutions. In principle, they are also very attractive, and they are also very much talked about. But because of the scale which is foreseen in this industrial demonstration, and also the direct conversion of flue gases without any kind of pre-treatment, it's likely that it will prevent its integration into the project. Next slide, please. And with this topic, we hope that we can contribute to a cost-effective innovation that connects the overall industry in Europe and gives us a flexible energy storage, supports our climate goals, and then in the end of the day, delivering clean products. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I would be pleased to answer any questions that you have.
So, Soren, thank you very much for your nice presentation. Actually, there is one question again about the financing part. It is stated that actually for the fuel, chemical, and carbon dioxide processes, it is required to produce hydrogen through electrolyzer, and during these processes, actually a certain amount of electricity, a significant amount of electricity production is required. So if the cost of that electricity will also be covered with support of European Commission.
Well, that's relatively easy to answer, because in principle, yes, but of course it's up to the proposers to demonstrate how they can make a successful proposal in the end that delivers full value for the money for the European taxpayers.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much again for your enlightening presentation. We appreciate for it. And let us move to our next speaker. The topic is about Green Deal 4.1, and I would like to kindly invite Mr. Silva Robert, is the policy officer in Energy Efficiency Unit in DG Energy. Mr. Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hello, welcome. Thank you. It is good to see you.
Yes, it's very nice of you to have invited us to this event. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay, very good. So first of all, I'd like to mention that I'm not a policy officer in DG Energy anymore. I was until the end of July, so the mistake is fully understandable. But now I'm project advisor, and I work in ERSME, an executive agency of the European Commission. Also, I wish to mention that I'm replacing here Miss Maria Getziu, who is senior expert in DG Research and Innovation of the European Commission, and who could not make herself available for this event today. So yes, the aim of this presentation is to introduce topic 4.1 of the Green Deal call. And if we can go to next slide, please. So this call has an overall funding of 60 million euros with an indicative EU contribution per proposal of between 10 and 20 million euros. It's an innovation action, which means that we are targeting quite high technology readiness levels, typically 7, 8 at the end of the project. And like the other topics of the Green Deal call, it has just opened end of September, and it will close on 26 January 2021. Next slide, please. So the specific challenge of the topic is fully in line, of course, with the Green Deal's priorities for the building sector. So it stresses the role of the building sector in achieving climate neutrality and the need to decarbonize buildings by 2050 in line with EU policies. It points to the objective to deliver, on the one side, the zero emission and zero pollution buildings with a focus on the service phase, and on the other side, a transition to positive energy houses in sustainable green neighborhoods. So this point is quite important because it means that we are not targeting only individual buildings, but really a larger scale, so the neighborhood scale. The challenge also stresses two complementary aspects, which are the reduction of embodied emissions and improvement of energy efficiency in designing, constructing and renovating buildings, and also the transition to energy positive buildings relying on sustainable renewable energy technologies. And finally, the topic emphasizes the need to work on the combination of energy demand reduction, including based on effective building designs, and on the integration of zero emission technologies. Next slide, please. So moving now to the scope of the topic. So to summarize, there is one overall objective, which is to test innovations across the whole value chain, also adapting the value chain to innovations delivered. One other aim is to rely on innovation clusters to demonstrate, evaluate, and replicate innovative solutions. And an important point is that demonstration and validation of the solutions should be carried out in the form of real-life living labs, to raise awareness, facilitate social innovation, and promote education and training. And another expectation is that projects should contribute to coordination on relevant standards and regulatory aspects. Next slide, please. So in more details, the projects are expected to deliver at least 2 large-scale demonstrations in different regions of Europe for residential and non-residential, new buildings, and renovation. The solutions proposed should address not only the building scale, but the design of green, positive energy neighborhoods with a due consideration of the context. The projects should also address the whole construction and renovation workflow from design to post-construction monitoring in consideration of different challenges, which are the reduction of embodied energy, the demonstration of high replicability of solutions, ensuring that there are no negative effects on fire and seismic safety, also ensuring the minimization of occupant disruption, and finally ensuring post-construction and renovation monitoring. Next slide, please. So the topic asks projects to deliver effective designs, including active and passive solutions that are adapted to local environments and climatic conditions. And in this scope, the projects should consider digital methods and methods based on European Global Navigation Satellite System, so the EGNSS. So these methods should be used for the design, construction, monitoring, and tracking of processes. And also projects should consider innovative and more energy efficient building integrated photovoltaic. So in relation to the former, so in relation to EGNSS, we wish to stress the possible link that can be made, which can provide relevant support to the solutions developed in the projects. For instance, in relation to digital solutions for construction and renovation, or to smart sensing. And on this, we would encourage the applicants to consult the Galileo user help desk on the web for further information. Next slide, please. So finally, and this is the last slide about the scope, project solutions should include innovative, cost and energy efficient renewable energy generation in buildings, combined with urban service facilities and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technologies. Also, energy storage systems with bidirectional charging that don't limit use of living space, and digital technologies for energy efficient building operation, reduced maintenance costs, improved comfort and health, and energy optimization at neighborhood scale. So those technologies should enable a range of smart services, including but not limited to demand response, dynamic matching of generation and demand, and smart home services. Next slide. In terms of impacts, so the topic lists a clear set of impacts that are expected from the project. Those are primary energy savings, investments in sustainable energy, the fact that the project would allow to move to high energy performance of buildings. So the targeted levels are nearly zero energy for renovation and positive energy levels for construction, for new constructions. Also, as part of the impacts, the expectation is to reach a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So the aim is to move towards zero for the total life cycle. One other impact is the reduction of embodied energy in buildings by 50%, and also the reduction of air pollutants towards zero for the total life cycle. Next slide, please. And as part of the impacts, so, and this is the continuation of the list, there is also an expectation on the demonstration of high potential for replicability of solutions, shortening construction and retrofitting time and cost by at least 30%, and improve indoor environment quality by at least 30%, and reduce dust and noise during retrofitting by at least 30%. So please note, and it is important, that relevant indicators and metrics with the baseline values should be clearly stated in the proposals for those impacts. Voilà, next slide. And so just to give you some useful links that you can consult in order to get further information on this topic and on other relevant areas. And next slide, to thank you for your attention and to encourage you to consult the frequently asked questions on the funding portal. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Siva, for your presentation, and sorry for the honest mistake about your new title.
No, it's not an issue.
There are several questions, actually. The first question is about the meaning of large-scale demonstration, actually. What you are expecting as a large-scale demonstration activities.
Indeed, and this is a question that has been asked already as part of previous events. And actually, it's very difficult to give a quantitative assessment of what large scale means, because of course it would depend a lot on the specific demonstration site considered. That being said, of course, we would expect that the demonstration sites include several buildings, not only one. And also that the share of the surface area that is represented by the targeted buildings is significant compared to the size of the neighborhood targeted.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is about let's say that one demonstration site want to participate more than one proposal prepared for that particular topic. Is it eligible for them to take part in 2 different consortiums?
Well, if it's, I mean, of course, I think everyone in this call is aware that there cannot be double counting of any activity. So this means that if this is the same site in the sense that it's the same neighborhood, obviously the activities that are implemented in one project should be different from the activities implemented in another one.
Okay. And also in the presentation, you highlighted proposals are expected to deliver at least 2 residential, non-residential, new and or retrofitted large-scale demonstration. So actually, it is not clear that each demo site must contain both residential and non-residential blocks, or could it be done demonstration site is residential, other demo site is non-residential? I mean, do you think that both of them should be in the same place? Or will it be possible to, let's say, apply it in different place?
What you are describing is possible, which means that the project as a whole should address both residential and non-residential, but a given demonstration site can include only one type of buildings.
Okay, thank you. And in case it is required to carrying out retrofitting activities, are these costs also eligible?
So the costs that are eligible when it comes to construction and renovation are only the costs that are related to the innovative elements of the construction or renovation, which means the elements that go beyond the state of the art and the state of practice, and that are relevant to the scope of the topic. So other kind of activities and elements would not be eligible for funding.
Thank you. And the final question is, what is the expectation of number of buildings and their size in terms of meters square?
There is no such expectation, and it really depends on the demonstration site.
So thank you very much again for your presentation
and
kind contributions. Thank you, Silva. So ladies and gentlemen, in the first part, last but not least, I would like to kindly invite Mr. Dimitris Vartis. He is the policy officer in DG Mobility and Transport. Dimitris, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Hello, Dimitris. Welcome. It is nice to see you. And your presentation is about topic 1.5. It is about green airports and ports. And the floor is yours, Dimitris.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So my name is Dimitris Vartis. I'm here from the Commission, from the Director General for Mobility and Transport. And I'm here to give you this high-level overview on topic 5.1 on green airports and ports. So the next slide, please. Okay. Now, looking into this topic, let us first look at the overall policy context behind that, and how actually we have come about to propose this topic. Now, as you know, as you've seen in the Green Deal communication back in December last year, there were clear references in there for the need to drastically reduce the emissions in transport. So you see here a number of references from the communication, and that included also references to accelerate the shift to sustainable and smart mobility, ramp up deployment, production of alternative fuels and clean energy sources being used for transport. But there were also specific references to aviation, the need to reduce emissions there, also on the side of airports. For shipping also, the need to reduce waterborne generated emissions, and in particular also references to ports. Now, if we look at the transport sector in a little bit more detail, we're all aware that quite significant progress has already been achieved in road transport and in rail transport with electrification. And certainly in the areas of aviation and shipping, still quite a lot needs to be done. And looking at the contributions of these sectors in terms of emissions, combined, they generate 27% of the total transport greenhouse gas emissions in the EU. So quite a significant share. Also, taking into account rising traffic for the future, still despite the current difficult period, but also particularly for waterborne due to the importance of the sector in terms of the global trade. And of course, at the same time and beyond research and innovation, a number of policy actions are already in place and are foreseen also to be coming into place in the coming years to further support reduction of emissions in aviation and waterborne transport. And of course, all of this, when we're looking to put forward such a topic, we had in mind, similar to the overall objective of the Green Deal call, we had the objective to generate a significant and immediate impact out of this action. And that means already having lower emissions and impact generated already by 2025, and thereafter as we roll out the new solutions later, already by 2030. So, and you will have seen that now we have the new climate target plan with the revised, the new ambition that is in place there and commitment from the side of the European Commission to reduce emissions by 55% by 2030. So, with all of that context and background, we actually put together this topic focusing on green airports and ports and the role as multimodal hubs for sustainable and smart mobility. So the next slide, please. Okay, now if we look at the proposed activities as part of this topic 5.1 in a little bit more detail, what we have in mind here, and you will see that in the call text itself, what we're putting forward here is that we wish to have projects performing large-scale real-life demonstrations. So these are high TRL actions, TRL 6 and above, demonstrations of green airports, as well as maritime and inland ports of different sizes across Europe. That also then includes work on the production side, so pilot and demonstration activities on zero-emission energy production, distribution and supply of all that to the airports and the ports. And that production could be undertaken on the site itself, at the airport or the port, or in the vicinity or close by. And here we talk about production of sustainable energy, be it from electricity, green hydrogen, or other types of sustainable alternative fuels. So once again, the production side to cover the distribution and the supply, the entire chain, all of that, up to the point of use for the demand side to be used for transport, so for aircraft, ships, but also for other vehicles operating on those sites or for other purposes. The call, this topic also foresees, in addition, the integration of all these operations, these innovations, with the operations and the logistics that are taking place in airports and ports, so that these are further becoming more sustainable, greener, and smarter, as well as plugging in and joining up with other activities that are taking place in these hubs on the side of construction, dredging for waterborne, but also infrastructures, as well as to make more effective and optimize the use of the land or the sea or the river, as may be the case. At the same time, let us also note here that the call also addresses the digitalization component. So sustainability is one of the components addressed, but also on the digital side of things, the topic proposes the development and showcase of how new digital and smart tools can be used in these hubs, in airports and ports, to better optimize the traffic, the passenger and freight traffic flows into and out of these hubs, wherever they're coming from, the city or from other nodes, back and forth, as well as from other airports or ports, other connections, and also to facilitate all that incoming traffic into outgoing traffic into other modes. So those intermodal connections, those modal shifts, also to be looked at. And finally, the call topic also proposes to address non-technological aspects. So that includes regulatory aspects that need to be looked at, or investment and analysis on the cost side, as well as new governance models that could be put in place to facilitate the introduction and implementation of these new R&I solutions to be implemented in airports and ports as we go forward. The next slide, please. All right, so at the end of this topic, therefore, what we have in mind is that at the end, indeed, we managed to accelerate the deployment of sustainable alternative fuels. And again, I mentioned examples on the side of biofuels, hydrogen, but also electricity, and wrapping it up and using that for aviation, for shipping, as well as for other modes of transport and other purposes. The impact here is again on both sides, so both on the side of use and on demand side, but also on the production side, on the supply side, getting those fuels produced in a sustainable way, and then continued for distribution and optimized supply using existing or possibly new infrastructures to the hubs, to the airports or the ports, again up to the point of making an impact in delivering these fuels for refueling and recharging for the different vehicles and purposes. All of this would lead to what we have in mind here in terms of having an ambition to have zero emission ports and airport operations together, of course, with improved air quality by 2030. We believe it is possible. There are a number of solutions already in this direction. So this topic gives the opportunity to magnify that and demonstrate that even further. That would then propagate the impact out of these hubs, if I can say, and in the wider sector, in aviation, in shipping, but also for the other modes of transport. And that way, we're generating new and more sustainable traffic flows for both passengers and freight. And of course, what we are also aiming to achieve is to have more energy efficient and smart operations in these hubs, more energy efficient buildings, smart and green logistics, and more efficient and effective intermodal connections and modal shifts. And finally, you will have seen in the call text, there is also a reference to traffic flows and links to the cities. As we know, airports are typically situated in the close vicinity of cities and ports, sometimes within cities. So that link with cities is still there. And of course, there are links with urban mobility, but also there are ways to better optimize the integration with the city, between the city and these hubs. As I mentioned earlier, one way, of course, is the optimization of the traffic flows, but also there are vehicles that are going back and forth from these two points. So also that point on the cities is part of the scope. The next slide, please. So to take a little bit of a stock of what we have already said here, and essentially what we talk about here in terms of the key features for green airports and ports and what is being addressed in this topic. So these are essentially, the key buckets of work. The first one there, and clearly the biggest component relating to this call on the Green Deal is the sustainability component. So here, as I mentioned, we talk about the green energy production, distribution and supply, as well as the use of all that clean energy for transport and other purposes. And in terms of energy sources, we talk about hydrogen, green hydrogen, electricity, biofuels, and sustainable alternative fuels. So that's all on the sustainability angle, if I can say. Then on top of that, we overlay this element of digitalization with smart tools and the demonstration and use of connected and automated vehicles operating on site at the airport or the port, but also cranes in ports and other vehicles that are operating there. Furthermore, I also already discussed the digital aspects on the traffic optimization and how this can be dynamically done, looking at the traffic flows coming in and out of the airports and the ports from cities or from other nodes. But also the other elements on the smart operations, smart logistics, and efficient multimodal connections and shifts. So all those digital components are also part of this core topic. Furthermore, let me also clarify here once again, even though you see more, the emphasis on airports and ports, and indeed most of the demonstration activities are taking place at those hubs. Nevertheless, there's a strong multimodal dimension also in this topic. You see that also explicitly referenced also in the title. So indeed, the work is to generate impact and serve the aviation, the shipping sectors, maritime and inland, but also other modes of transport here. So again, talking about access to these hubs back from the city, between the city and airport and port. There are connections on the road, of course, but also rail connections and other types and modal shifts. So from that point of view, there's a wider network of systemic perspective as part of this topic, covering all modes of transport. And indeed, as I mentioned there in the last bullet, that is exactly what we had in mind to address the overall system-wide door-to-door mobility for passengers and freight. And then finally, as I mentioned, there is also a number of other elements and features for the green airports and ports. So logistics, infrastructures, buildings, the cities, but also other elements that are being addressed on the side of biodiversity, improving diversity, circular economy, and making effective use of the land, sea, or the river, as the case may be. Next slide, please. And finally, on this slide, let me summarize the key modalities or the key conditions of this topic. You will see that indeed this is a high TRL, as I mentioned, action. So it's an innovation action. In terms of project duration, these are rather sizable projects expected to generate quite significant impact, as I mentioned. So we foresee a project duration of around 4 to 5 years. Now, in terms of the consortia to participate in these projects, you will see there are some explicit conditions referenced in the call text. And in particular, we foresee that the projects would include one lighthouse airport or port, which would take on board and take the responsibility for the bulk of the demonstration activities, for doing a lot of the work there. But also a number of fellow airports or ports to also be associated in the project. These fellow airports or ports, they also have a role to play, to participate in some of these activities, to replicate some of the solutions on their sites, and really demonstrate commitment to also deploy these as we go forward. So these conditions you will find there also in the text. As the topic text also says, the way this topic will be evaluated, it will be done for the two areas that are highlighted. There's one area for green airports, area A, and area B for green ports. So that means that similarly on the side of the evaluation, clearly the highest ranked proposals will be proposed for funding, but of course to ensure a balanced portfolio across airports and ports. The intention here is that we foresee funding for at least 2 proposals for each area. There's another condition here, which is not mentioned on the slide, but you will see that in particular for area B for green ports, there is a condition that one of the participating ports should be an inland waterway port. So that also gives you an indication that indeed we wish to generate impact and address not just the maritime waterborne sector, but also the inland waterways, which is also an important subsector, I would say, or sector within Europe that should not be forgotten. And in terms of the budget, as you see, the overall budget envelope for this topic is at 100 million euros. It is quite a substantial amount that we're putting forward. It is actually the largest topic within the Green Deal call, around so 10% of the overall Green Deal call budget. And in terms of the budget per project that we foresee, I mentioned these are quite sizable projects. There's innovation, actions mature, but there is also some flexibility in the scope of work to be decided and addressed. So here we're putting forward an EU contribution of 15 to 25 million euros per project. And finally, let me recall that this is a single stage. This is a single stage call topic. So that means it's a one-shot proposal that needs to be put forward. And the deadline for this is 26th of January, 2021. So with all of this information in mind and this high-level overview, I would like to conclude and actually invite you to please have a look at the precise call text. As I mentioned, there are a number of conditions, one of which in particular, which is actually quite relevant here, is the condition that the participating airports or ports should be from different countries, different EU member states and or associated countries. So that is also an important element to take into consideration. So thank you very much for your attention. And as our colleagues also explained, the funding and tenders portal is already there. And there are already on the portal a number of questions that have been addressed and answered. So please also take those into consideration. And I look forward to welcoming new and innovative ideas and proposals coming forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. We appreciate for your very informative presentation. We have several questions. Actually, the first one is about the non-technological aspects that you mentioned in your presentation. What is the meaning of it, and what is the expected innovation level for that non-technological aspects?
Okay, so here, as I mentioned, well, first of all, the bulk of the work, as you see there, it refers to demonstration activities. There's a lot of technology involved. The TRL level of 6 or above has been addressed. But what we wanted to also address in this whole topic, as you rightly say, is also some of the elements that we don't want these to be forgotten. And that's what I refer to the non-technological aspects. Now, here we talk about if you like, the wrap around these RNI solutions and how to, and what new ancillary or wrapping or non-technological work needs to be put forward to enable these technological solutions to be further implemented and deployed. And for that to be done, we also need to look at new types of governance models, what stakeholders are in place, and that need to be considered in the remit of going forward and investing and in implementing these types of solutions, how these stakeholders would operate in a coordinated way, what possible changes to the regulatory framework need to take place for the area B, for green ports in particular. There's also an explicit reference to have a master plan. So there again, there are a number of analyses and other things that need to be looked at. I mentioned the example earlier on the side of the investment or the cost side. It's all good and very good to demonstrate that from a technical perspective, these things can be done and generate impact to reduce emissions. But if these things are way too expensive or actually cannot be accommodated because the business case is not there, I mean, these things also need to be considered as a package. So ultimately, we're looking for technological solutions, new innovations that are not only technically able and capable to be implemented, but also the surrounding conditions to be in place to enable that to take place. So again, the regulatory aspects, the governance aspects, the investment business case aspects, these things also need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Dimitris. Another question is about the installation or construction cost covered within the topic. I mean, there are certain cases about energy efficient buildings or the methods, demolition, construction of the buildings. Are that kind of costs will be covered within the, I mean, are they eligible within the support of European Commission?
Now, on this side of the question on cost eligibility and what could be eligible or not, I mean, there, as you know, the regular conditions apply for Horizon 2020 projects and the eligibility criteria. It would be also for the beneficiaries and the consortium to check all these conditions. It depends. I give you some examples whether these costs are booked on their balance sheet, depreciated, and how they are amortized. Are they explicitly being put in place for this particular project or as part of broader operations and investments of the airport or the port. So there are a number of things that need to be checked. So in the conditions of H2020, in the general annexes there, and need to be, of course, in line with the financial regulation. That's one point. And the other point I would say is that, as I mentioned here, the focus is on new innovative solutions to be put in place for different elements. And if some of these include new types of vehicles or infrastructures, that does not mean that this topic is here to fund the construction of new highways or new roads or a new rail line to connect the airport or a new pipeline to transfer the fuels from 50 kilometers away. That is not the purpose of this call, to clarify. So indeed, existing infrastructures can be used. Proposals could be made to see how they can be further optimized, or potentially whether new infrastructure should be built to put in place and implement these solutions. But again, this is not to construct or demolish buildings, and of course that would take away all the cost and even more. So you see, it's a Horizon 2020 project within the same type of cost eligibility and way of work and funding that has been provided for other topics and projects. So please take those elements into consideration.
Thank you very much, Dimitris. And also, in your presentation, you mentioned that it is required to demonstrate the energy production within the facilities within the ports or airports. But is it compulsory to establish those energy production facilities within the, let's say, area of airport or port? Or is it possible to, let's say, establish them in a separate place, but very close to ports and airports?
So indeed, I mean, the call text actually, and to be honest, we also had a reflection on this when we were preparing this topic. So the point is to join the supply and the demand side. Now, you know, if there's opportunity, and clearly in many areas it may make sense that this production is taking place locally on the site with the use of buildings, I don't know, photovoltaics or other equipment or electricity generation through other means on the site. If that can be done on the site, then clearly the distance between the supply side and the demand side is much closer, so there would be less need for infrastructure and for any other issues or stakeholders to be intermittent in that way. But having said this, we appreciate that that may not be feasible to take place precisely on the site, and so some of these fuels, for instance, would need to be generated outside of the airport or the port, but then they would have to be distributed and supplied to the airports on the ports. So indeed, actually here the call text gives some flexibility, and the project can put forward proposals of whether to demonstrate these things and the production of these fuels on the site, or it is also eligible that if these are produced outside of the airports or the ports. But let me also then say that at the end, as you know, as is always the case for H2020 projects, the regular evaluation criteria will apply on the excellence of ideas, the implementation, and the impact that would generate. So indeed, you know, as a theoretical example, if we have two projects that have exactly the same work, but one is producing the clean energy on the site, there's another one that is doing this production much further away, which then may have additional cost to bring that into the port or the airport, and possibly it would generate less impact. I mean, that would be evaluated. So again, to summarize, the call leaves it a bit open. It could be strictly on the site, but it does not have to. But again, it is up to the project to explain where this activity will take place and what will be the final impact of the solutions and the localization of where the solutions are implemented towards achieving finally reduction of emissions.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And the last question is actually about the fellow airport and ports. It is already published in European Commission frequently asked question part in under funding and tender portal, the fellow airports could also make demonstration in case they are obliged to the budget limit 20%. But do you think that it is only expected from lighthouse ports and airports to transfer their the solutions created under that particular demonstrations through the fellow ports or airports, or is it also possible to transferring knowledge created under fellow airports and ports to the lighthouse?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, no, that's a good point also to clarify. The text, the way and it's drafted, it talks first about the lighthouse and then about the fellows. So there may be some inference that, okay, well, then it's always all done at the lighthouse and then the others only replicate. But actually, indeed, as you mentioned, and we're already aware that some smaller size airports or ports, for instance, they have already demonstrated, they have gone a long way to put forward new solutions to reduce emissions. So indeed, it could be actually the other way around. It could be a smaller or fellow airport or port that has developed demonstrated solutions, which actually will be the lighthouse to then replicate in that sense. So there's no, if I can say in quotes, a top-down or bottom-up. I mean, both are possible, and I say that because that is really the essence of this topic and these projects, is to have, as you see, a number of airports or ports within each project, and clearly all of them do not have exactly the same size. Some will be slightly larger, some slightly medium or smaller size, but also after this project. Indeed, we foresee scalability and replicability of these solutions, top down and bottom up, if I can say. So, we're looking ultimately to implement these things all over Europe, across large, medium, and small airports and ports. So, to do this, the scalability element and the replicability needs to be demonstrated both ways. So now, again, that's also to clarify that not exactly the same activities would take place. So here comes now the work of the consortium to clearly lay out what should be done by which entity, what activities will be done by the lighthouse, by the fellow airports or ports, how much of these activities will be, let's call them in quotes, replication activities, or which activities will be going in parallel without having been demonstrated. You mentioned the 20% for the fellows. Indeed, that's also another condition in the text. That is a maximum. That is a ceiling of 20% budget for all the fellow airports or ports in the project. And here to clarify, not per airport or port, it's for all together. So, so that also gives you a bit of an indication of size as to how much activities and to what size should be performed at the level of the fellow. But of course, as I mentioned, this is an innovation action. So, the 70% and another cost co-funding is applied. That means that it could be additional funding beyond the EU contribution. So that could also be put in place. And of course, there's additional contribution that could be put in place even out of the scope of this project. If there's a group that, for instance, operates 3 or 4 airports, they may wish to also replicate this outside of the project into other airports or ports. So again, we're putting this topic as also a little bit as a multiplier. So we start with the selection of airports or ports to be in these projects, but of course this does not restrict for parallel or top-up work to be done further on and beyond.
Thank you very much, Dimitris, for that informative answer. So thank you very much again for all participants from European Commission for their valuable contribution. So we complete the first session, and since we don't have too much time, we will immediately continue to the second pitching session. So for the pitching session, actually we have yes, you can see that we have 10 presenters right now. I will appreciate if our presenters, speakers will oblige the 4 minutes time duration for their presentation. When your presentations is about to finish, I will appear in the screen and kindly request your closing words. So let us begin with our first presenter. I would like to kindly invite Mr. Anduap Servet Akgün from Pure Energy. Now I think the presentation is being uploaded.
Can you hear me?
Servet Bey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Welcome to our session.
You can hear me, right? Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me now?
The floor is yours.
Hi. I mean, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but yeah, if it's the case, hello everybody. Unfortunately, I'm outside at the moment because of the rather wake timeline. Anyway, so I will just jump into the topic. My name is Servet Akgün. I'm from Pure Energy. That's a company founded like 4.5 years ago, and we are virtual power plant operator only for pure renewable assets. And we have operations in Istanbul, Turkey, and in Düsseldorf, Germany. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, well, I mean, the company is, as I said, mainly concentrated on the virtual power plant aggregator business model. And we have left some corporate carriers behind and decided to jump into this area, which is purely digital and renewable. And so far, we were able to demonstrate a good execution for the last 4.5 years. As I said, around 2,000 megawatts pure renewable assets in Turkey, predominantly wind, run-of-river hydro, geothermal, solar, biomass, and all kinds. And also in Germany, now we're taking over a 1,200 megawatt portfolio as of end of this quarter. And that will be also purely commercially optimized. And the idea behind the business model is that we connect through all these power plants. As you know, we just need to get the live data and then train our models for better forecasting, and we reduce their forecast errors. And then, of course, in return, this increases the profitability and commercial gains of the owners. And then we have profit sharing deals. And as of 2019, we have already also added somewhere around 80 to 90 megawatts of base load equivalent on the demand side to the model. And we are actually now within the scope of the Horizon 2020. We would like to also demonstrate this in a hybrid model with cogeneration assets, which is in the next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, just a little also information on the research team we have. We have colleagues who are predominantly economists and engineers who has a PhD, for example, or different Master of Science degrees, and of course bachelors. And we are focusing on basically forecast improvements on the machine learning platforms, optimization of the trading and algorithmic trading models. So purely, as I said, it's a digital energy management of renewable assets, and basically by improving the forecasts of both generation on the power side and consumption, we're trying to add value to the stakeholders on the both sides of the aggregator. So it's a pure platform-based business model. Next slide, please. So the idea we have for the H2020 is basically we have spotted a portfolio of assets which has a cogeneration facility, which also has a hydro plant and a wind park owned by the same group.
Servet Bey, your closing statements, please.
Yeah, thanks actually for the additional 20% shortening. Yeah, in the end, basically what we're gonna do with the project is that we're gonna combine all these hybrid structures and reduce the power consumption, and also do the peak shifting to the proper hours. And we will match that demand by pure renewable assets and by pure renewable energy. So it will be basically serving the purpose of this chapter. Next one, please. So within that scope, actually, the next slide, please. Within that scope, we're looking for partners in the areas of research on the cogeneration side, and also addition that to the platform, and a bit of help on the software development, and of course monitoring systems. We were trying to join forces and get the project fly. So that's actually pretty much it within the time constraints, I guess. So very much looking forward to continue this in a, let's say, rather time-relaxed setting. Thank you very much for all this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akgün, for your presentation. So let us move our next speaker. I would like to kindly invite Ms. Nadia Nikolova from Sofia Energy Efficiency. Sofena. Ms. Nikolova, can you hear me? Şu anda ses üzerinde gözükmüyor. Bence ses sorunu var. Yeah. Ms. Nikolova, actually, we couldn't hear you. So actually, let us move to our next speaker. Then, in case we will succeed to reconnect Ms. Nadia Nikolova at the end of session, we again want to show her presentation. I think Mr. Flavio Franco is not with us. So let us move to our next speaker, Ms. Oya Yazıcı from Arçelik.
Hello, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Miss Nadia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Excuse me for the delay. Okay.
You're welcome. So let's complete your presentation first and move to our next presenter later. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So I represent Sofia Energy Agency. This is an institution NGO that was established with the support of Sofia municipality. We support municipalities as a whole, and specifically Sofia municipality in its energy policy. So we conduct energy audits. We develop policy documents like plans and programs. Specifically, during the last years, we work on energy management in buildings, in public buildings. Our agency has rather long experience already, and we work in different areas, not only in energy efficiency in buildings, but also we work in the field of support of entrepreneurs as well. So we have rather good experience in European projects. We have implemented over 20 international projects during the last 20 years, let's say. And nowadays, we work very closely with the municipalities to develop their energy plans and to advise them how to reduce their energy costs. Next slide, please. Yeah, at present we have 5 persons as a permanent staff, but we cooperate with the universities and the Academy of Sciences in case of need. So we have rather good pool of experts we work with. Sofena, this is the short name of the agency, in fact is part of the Bulgarian Agencies Association, and our director, the director of the agency is the vice president of the Association of the Bulgarian Energy Agency. So we represent, in fact, all Bulgarian institutions the interests of the energy experts and different activities.
Ms. Nikolova, your last words, please.
Yeah, next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Very shortly, at present, we work on several interesting projects. We have finalized the project on the Horizon Start to Act. It included support for entrepreneurs, and we now started a new project like this for the market uptake of citizen energy communities, so that we have some experience in Horizon projects as well. We have worked on Erasmus projects. I would stress on it because we have developed a series of training materials. So the agency conducts training as well to the municipal employees as well. So our interests, next slide please. Our interests in the Green Deal are within these two goals that I mentioned here, that is towards climate neutral and socially innovative cities and building and renovation in an energy and resource efficient ways. We can play the role of an expert partner in projects. Then we are looking for partners in order to join a consortium.
Ms. Nikolova, actually your last statements, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your contribution. And I just would like to emphasize that all presentations and records will be published and circulated also via mail. You will see the also the contact details of our presenters from there. So let's move to Ms. Oya Yazıcı from Arçelik. Oya Hanım, welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oya Yazıcı. I like to say that I am very pleased to have this opportunity to represent my company, Arçelik LG Air Conditioner Factory for Green Deal call today. Who is Arçelik LG? We were founded in year 1999 as a joint venture company by Arçelik from Turkey and by LG Electronics from South Korea. They both have 50% share within this partnership. Arçelik LG is the first and the biggest air conditioner manufacturer in Turkey. We have the largest production facility in Europe and in the Near East Asia. Our annual capacity is 3 million speed type air conditioner. We have a considerable experience in many local and international projects. And next, please. As biggest air conditioner manufacturer in Europe and Near East Asia, we are leading HVAC sector during last 21 years so far. This year, we succeeded 55% market share in Turkey, which means 1 out of every 2 Turkish customers prefer our air conditioners for their houses. I think, can you go one? Yes, okay, that's right. Our hidden power comes from our 5,000 dealers, 55 technical services, 40 R&D researches, and over 100 patents. Next, please. Our first project idea is related to LCGD4, building and renovating in an energy and resource efficient way. We are ready to develop our heating and cooling products with zero pollution and zero carbon emission for new and old buildings. We are also developing smart home products for energy efficient buildings such as Wi-Fi ready kit, voice control, smart thermostat, cloud services, and etc. Next, please. Our second project idea is about LCGD31, closing the industrial carbon cycle. We are the first domestic air conditioner manufacturer in Turkey to reduce carbon emission since 2018 with our R32 environmentalist gas project. And our project was also rewarded by TÜBİTAK last year. Next, please. Since COVID-19 pandemic started, we are developing disinfectant project on air conditioner products, we can easily participate in such projects as a partner or as an end user. Next, please. And our final project idea is related to LCGD81. We can participate as an active leading partner for Europe market with using Leopard, Eco-PP and recycled PP materials for our HVAC products. We have got all necessary abilities to develop and produce such product with our laboratories, testing, molding, and other required capabilities. Next, please. As I mentioned previously, we have taken duty as a partner in 2 Horizon 2020 projects so far. We met with many other partners from many countries, but I have only written down 3 of them on the table. Next, please. And finally, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. You are all welcome to contribute partnership within our or your project ideas. Kind regards to all participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yazıcı, for your timely contribution. And let us move to our next speaker, Mr. Erdeniz Erol from Elkon Electric. Erdeniz Bey, welcome.
Thank you, Serhat Bey. Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm representing Elkon Electric company from Turkey. We are specialized in marine electric business. We are the largest low voltage electric company in Turkish shipbuilding industry. We have founded in 1980s, delivered more than 500 electrical and automation projects in the ships. Mainly we are doing the electrification of the ships and the distribution boards and automation of that. We have company certificates for ISO and we have NATO facility security clearances because of naval projects. Next slide, please. In 2017, we have awarded as an R&D center from Turkish Ministry of Science, Industry and Technology. We have more than 40 researchers specialized in ship electric, marine electric, and 8 technicians. Next slide, please. We have just finished a TÜBİTAK funded project this year. This was a DC-DC converter for ship applications, hybrid ship applications. Next slides. And another one is which will be a patented technology that there will be a solid state active DC breaker which will be used again in all electric ships and the other hybrid electric ships. Next slide, please. And we have a SIAM project, that means an industrial collaboration project that again funded by TÜBİTAK, our research council. That means the IDA Autosec, we named it. It's an autonomous ship consortium led by Elkon Electric and our partners. We have prepared the roadmap for autonomous ships in Turkey. Next slide, please. And this year we have just started for a prototype development on robotic electric ship battery feeding system. As you see a prototype in the right hand side that will be developed by us and an SME from Turkey called Novosim. And it will be a target prototype development for TRL 7. And we think that this product will be also can be used or can be further developed for other Green Deal calls that we'll mention in the next slide. These are the calls that Elkon will be dealing, and we think that Elkon will enhance your consortium as you have a project idea, or we have some partners that we are talking on these calls, because we haven't got any consortium leader in these calls yet, but we have been talking in many partners from many countries. This was the to one, which will be the offshore renewable energy technologies call. We can participate as a grid infrastructure and power to X site. We can power to ship or power to battery or storage systems.
Your last statements, please.
Okay, and the other one is the ports call, which we can electrify the ships and the ports. We can provide as an electromobility partner and a green port infrastructure partner for the ports. And we also can contribute as an industrial partner to the digital twin of the ocean and the European research infrastructures. Next slide. You can see my contact info here. You can directly contact me via phone or email as you wish. Thank you for this opportunity for TÜBİTAK.
Thank you very much, Ardeniz Bey, for
You're
your
welcome.
timely presentation. So I'd like to kindly invite our next speaker, Ms. Aslı Kafalı from Aslan Panel. Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good day, everybody. I'm from Speaking Aslan Panel. My name is Aslı Kafalı. Next slide, thank you. Aslan Panel is a Kibar Holding Group company. Aslan Panel has a wide range of product grades in construction area as being leader of the sandwich panel market in Turkey. Our products are PUR, PIR, and rock wool filled sandwich panel, solar system solutions, specific project accessories, polycarbonate skylights, and complementary products such as fasteners, different screw types, PU, sealant, and fillers. Our product application areas is industrial building, roof wall and cold store panels, commercial buildings, sports facility, shopping center, city hospital, agriculture, and farming. Next slide, please. Thank you. Aslan Panel Sandwich Panel R&D team designed the product for the needs of customer with our infrastructure such as SolidWorks, AutoCAD, and building instruction modeling since 15 years of experience. We are only a domestic company making the polyurethane formulation in-house. PU R&D project team designed the formulation of the sandwich panel core material with expert staff since 2018. We are working on raw material improvements, reverse engineering, content line process optimization, design, and prototyping are carried out before the mass production in Aslan Panel. And also, Aslan Panel R&D team aims to achieve innovation in the product and production process, raising the quality, commercializing the technological information, and setting up joint projects by creating public or industry collaborations. Next slide, please. The project idea is Area 4 first, and building integrated photovoltaic system integration and development. Sorry, something is here. Okay. Photovoltaic system integration and development to wall sandwich panels for industrial building, non-residential, that we can say. Be your partner, TRL 6, 7, and 8 phases. And Area 3, industry for clean and circular economy. The project idea is the substitution conventional blowing agent type in composite panel, production with global warming potential and ozone depletion potential type blowing agent. It can be also be your partner TRL 4, 5, and 6 phases. Next slide, please. Here is the empty because the first time that the Aslan Panel is joined like this consortium. Next slide. Something is wrong. Next slide, please. And thank you for the this consortium that we can share our presentation. Thank you for everybody.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kafalı, for your nice presentation and sticking on time. So let's move to our next speaker. I'd like to kindly invite Mr. René Vanstrong from Vanstrong Architecture. Hello,
Can
Mr.
you hear me?
Armstrong. Yeah, welcome.
Very
Please,
good.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everybody. René Walstrong. I'm an architect based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Next slide. I need my glasses. So I developed a low exergy solar energy and zero emission building concept called Emporium with an integrated seasonal storage system for solar heat without energy losses, supplying indoor heating and hot tap water for residential and utility buildings in all climate zones. So the low exergy means actually that we keep as close as possible to the demand temperature. So 1 kilowatt hour body heat you get for free, 1 kilowatt hour a cup of tea, 100 degrees, that is quite an effort with the sun. And 1 kilowatt hour electricity is even more difficult. So the sun is in fact dealing on the quality or the applicability instead of the quantity or the volume. So that's why we choose a low exergy strategy, which is in fact keeping as close as possible to the demand temperature. So for the moment, I'm looking for implementation options. This is, yes, we have a transit simulation model and we want to learn to deliver with local partners. 1 second. So the project conditions are a southern facade, as you see left below, and an internal storage for the heat. And the reason we do it like this is that the southern facade is an outcome of the transit simulations. In case you look to the winter sun position, you minimize your seasonal storage for the whole year. In case you integrate your seasonal storage in the building, you use the heat losses of the storage as building heating. We store, for example, 8 gigajoule, we lose 11, and we use that as building heating. So this is an outcome of the simulations we did before. And due to the low exergy strategy, the costs of this system, storage system, are only €3 per kilowatt hour compared to 100 to 300 euro per kilowatt hour for electric battery costs. Next slide. So, as explained, Emporium is characterized, for example, by the European Commission itself, the Smart Cities and Communities platform, as a storage system with the smallest exergy loss and no energy loss. The heat storage, practically spoken, is 50 to 90 degrees over the year. We have an air cave around this water volume to ventilate in case we don't want the heat going to the space. And we use vacuum tubes to have the best insulated collector on the southern facade. So to repeat, we need a southern facade and we need a place to make the storage in the building. So compared to the next slide, please, next slide, yes. So compared to the cold, we fit in 4.1, that's clear. 10.3 in case it is education and prototyping. The seasonal storage good link is 2.1 and 9.1. And business model development and citizens involvement 1.2 and 9.2. We think about renovation, so new build is easier than renovation, but we think that to do the emission reduction in renovation is much more expensive compared to new build. So we say zero emission new build could compensate emission reduction in renovation. The roof is still free for PV, so building integrated PV is the roof. There was a kind of limit use of living space, I heard this morning. So in fact, we blow up the building volume a little bit. Construction costs, you won't find it back there.
Mr. Armstrong, your last sentences, please.
Okay, so you see here my experience from FP5 to Horizon 2020 and cost actions. Next slide, and you see my details. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. So we will continue our next presenter, Mr. Taurash Ashrafian from Özyeğin University. Mr. Ashrafian, can you hear me? Mr. Taurash Bey, can you hear us? Actually, we couldn't hear you, but your microphone is on, actually, is working. but we couldn't hear you.
Could you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Okay, welcome.
So
The floor is
sorry for problem, but yes, thank you very much. Hello all. My name is Turaj Ashrafian from Özyeğin University. Next slide, please. Our university is a new and young university established in 2007. It is the youngest university from 11 Turkish universities included in the Times Higher Education list. Our university portfolio includes more than 500 successfully concluded projects funded by EU and Scientific Council of Turkey, and also industrial supported project, together with more than 200 patent publication. The Building Material and Physics Laboratory of the Architecture and Design Faculty, where I am a founder and also co-director, is aimed to carry out the research study in the field of building science and feed the construction sector based on the various activities. We are working in a variety of fields related to the building energy efficiency improvement that are including but not limited to the building energy efficiency, sustainable regenerative architecture, lighting in building, and also energy efficiency in the urban scale. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Our laboratory is a young laboratory, but we have more than 10 years experience of working in the same team. Staffs and the key staffs of the laboratory were involved in variety of EU supported projects, including FP7 projects and Horizon 2020 project. Our latest project is an PCP project entitled as Recommercial Procurement of Breakthrough Solution for 100% Renewable Energy Supply in Buildings, acronymed as PROCURE, which is going to be started in December 2020. The activities that are holding within the laboratory are not limited to simulation and on-site measurement, design and implementation of the innovative solutions for buildings and building design and renovation. We have established the reference building for residential building in Turkey through a TÜBİTAK supported project and under EPBD 2010 methodology, and defined the nearly zero energy building and cost optimal building level for the residential building in the through that study, and also defined the national methodology to determine the building energy performance in the national level. Next slide, please. We are interested in LCGD 41 2020, and we have an idea that is a preliminary idea and needs to be improved before establishment of any consortium. It is based on the renovation action, and through this proposal, we will implement innovative actions and measures in the larger scale and not in the scale of just a building. A series of the innovative actions, including underground climatization system that required a small area to be implemented, and secondary skin adaptation to the building as a passive system-based solution, together with the low embodied energy and carbon emission renewable energy system application to transform the existing urban quarter to a regenerative one and positive one is included within the proposal. Next slide, please. There are lots of potential collaborators, but we didn't establish any consortium up to now, but there are lots of potential collaborators that we can invite them to involve in our consortium, but it is the next step during the
your last statements, please.
Period. Yeah, it is the last slide. So next slide, please. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much for your nice presentation. So we will move to our next speaker, Mr. Sadık Kula from OBSS. Sadık Bey, welcome.
Thank you, Serhat Bey. Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. The floor is yours.
Okay. I'm the General Manager Consultant of OBSS Software Development Company. And I would like to give you a brief information about our company and activities. Next slide. Next slide, please. OBSS has been one of the leading companies in the software industry since 2005. With its experience in application development, software architecture, DevOps, and application lifecycle management, software quality assurance test with its expert staff. In fact, OBSS has a principle of responding to challenging tasks and projects needs in the best way by evaluating the requirements and the existing technological infrastructure. We develop solutions by deciding the most appropriate system design and tools for customer needs with our expertise in various fields such as microservice architecture, cloud computing technologies, machine learning, and big data. In addition, we offer support to corporate companies about DevOps cultural transformation. OBSS is also to offer secure software development service thanks to the facility security certificate issued by the Ministry of National Defense by developing projects that are compatible with the CMMI Level 3 software maturity model, aiming to provide better quality services to its customers. Among our various references, there are Turkey's leading financial and banking institutions, as well as critical industry organizations and insurance companies. Next slide, please. Now, I would like to give a brief info about our capabilities. Because of the time limits, I will keep very short about our capabilities. We have software architecture capability, large-scale digital transformation projects, performance tuning, software quality assessment, cloud computing, etc. And also we have embedded software architecture capabilities, consist of compliant software development, validation process, and manned and unmanned ISR systems development. We have also systems engineering department and software engineering department, and we have also machine learning capabilities, including computer vision, NLP, data science, signal processing, and we have also sensor systems and IoT capabilities, include sensor monitoring, data collection and ingestion, sensor fusion, prediction, and anomaly detection. And we have also design departments. And next slide, please. And here you can see some selected codes that best suit our capabilities. As one of the largest independent companies in Turkey's software sector, with more than 500 engineers who work in the fields of software and robotics, seeks collaboration issues in order to participate in the European Union programs. Next slide, please. We believe that the Green Deal program is in line with the goals and aspirations of our company and is consistent with the strategies of our organization. OBSS would be very happy to cooperate as a project member and provide for software issues in an innovative project in the Green Deal program. We would like to be kept informed about the progress of calls and join the consortium activities. Thanks for listening and have a good and healthy day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadık Bey, for your timely contribution. And last but not least, I'd like to kindly invite Mr. Selçuk Yerci from Middle East Technical University, Center of Photovoltaics and Applications. Mr. Yerci, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, we can also hear you. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Just give me 15 seconds to move to my headset. I think so. So is it okay, the sound?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. And
all right. My name is Selçuk Erci, assistant professor from Middle East Technical University, Solar Energy Research and Applications Center. And this center is the Center of Excellence of Turkey in photovoltaic research. And with the law of 6550, GÜNAM is spinning out of the university and becoming a national center for excellence on this topic. And it has about 20 faculty members and over 100 graduate students. Now, with the new identity, GÜNAM will also have its own management system. So GÜNAM, as a part of the university, contributed around 10 European Union projects from FP7. There is one FP6, which is not on the list, and also in Horizon 2020. Next slide, please. GÜNAM basically addressed anything about solar energy from sun to grid. And we are fabricating solar cells and some materials related with solar cells, solar panels, and integration with the building, vehicles, and other places. So we're interested in, as I said, photovoltaics and concentrated solar power. Recently, we start working on the social and technological issues and sustainable built environment. Next slide, please. GÜNAM has measured two infrastructure. One of them is the METI Research Park, which is a building that's about to finish. And then the other one is the GÜNAM photovoltaic pilot line. So you can see a picture from inside. In this pilot line, we are fabricating our solar cells and also modules. Next slide, please. And CSP is a big part of the team. In the case of CSP, is well aligned with the European Union. There are 5 EU projects going on in this research topic. And it's not only solar to electricity, but it's also interested in the transportation of fuels, industrial process heat, and fresh, clean, and water. Next slide, please. Next slide. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So the social scientists and socioeconomic analysis, METI GÜNAM has a strong team of social scientists and mostly focus on economics in line with the green and renewable energies. And the economy, employment opportunities, production, current costs, and environment are the topics that we are interested in and working on. We use both qualitative and quantitative methods. And just to name the one, randomized controlled trials is one of the techniques that we are using. And social acceptance is the topic that we're interested in mostly for the solar deployment. Next slide, please. And sustainable building environment and cities, it's basically focused on energy performance, and we use data analytical tools and machine learning, and to invest on the occupancy comfort, economics, and environmental impacts. And climate change and urban heat islands are the other topic that we're interested in. Next slide, please. And GÜNAM has many collaborations in the EU level, as you have seen before, and also a lot of collaborations internally with the companies and the universities in Turkey. And just to name the one, IMEC, TNO, Fraunhofer ISE, EPFL, SINTEF, CNRS are the main collaborators on PV, and on the CSP, Tiamat, DLR, Astella, Enea, EPFL, CNRS, and CERT are our main collaborators. Next slide, please. And we're probably announced that we involved in also applications part. And Ceylanpınar Solar Park is made out of these solar cells, which is technologies developed in our facilities and fabricated in Turkey and installed in Turkish team. So it is all around us, the whole thing happened. And also we involved in a VIPV application, vehicle integrated PV application with the MAN company. Next slide, please. And also Turkish Photovoltaic Technologies Platform, TFTP, is about to appear soon with the TÜBİTAK funding. And we, with the companies and some of the universities in Turkey critical to this topic, we will be working on the PV projects together. Next slide. And these are the calls that we are interested in. We haven't worked on the details yet. We are looking for a partner to join. But as you have seen, we have strong interest on the renewable energy in general for the PV. And we can join the first and second. We have a lot of collaborations in Africa, North Africa in general. And we are also strong in the climate neutral and social innovative cities and the energy and resource efficiency for the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yarcı, for your very nice presentation and timely completing unit. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our session. I would like to thank all of our participants, both the presenters and attendees, for their valuable contribution. As I mentioned to you before, the presentations and the records will be circulated and published in our website. So actually, the brokerage event will start within 15 minutes. I would like to wish you good luck in your face-to-face meetings. And if you have any questions, you can reach us through our website. Thank you very much again and have a nice day.